Okay. Ada.
Minister, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, in their press briefing, the Azimio legislators lamented that the budget would oppress Kenyans due to what they described as Ruto's punitive tax measures.
Sisi tumekataa na tunasema tutasimama na wananchi liwe litakalokuwa, hata kama tutabaki wawili pale ndani ya bunge, lakini tutasimama na wananchi. Hii bajeti tumeikataa na leo ndio maana sisi tumesusia, hatutaki kusomewa bajeti ambayo sisi hatukuipitisha,
ambayo inamuumiza Mkenya mlala hoi. Bajeti ya kumuumiza Mkenya mlala hoi hatutakubali. Rome was not built in a day. Atunaweka matilioni mengi.
Serikali inajua, ilianza mwanzo. Serikali inajua, sisi wa pwani tumeongea. Watu wanakufa njaa, wametoroka makwao waende wa fast kule Shakahola kwa sababu serikali imeshindwa kuprovide.
Na wana Shakahola wa Kenya wote sahihi.
Na mimi nazungumzia.
Well, notably, some Azimio MPs remained in the chambers for the proceedings. CS Ndungu nonetheless proceeded to delve into the highlights of the 3.6 trillion budget minutes after the short disruption.
To the people of Kenya, the first budget of the Kenya Kwanza administration under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. I do this in compliance with the Standing Order number 241 of the National Assembly and Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 that requires the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to make pronouncement of the budget policy highlights and revenue-raising measures to the national government. This being the first budget following the conclusion of the general election held in August 2022, allow me to congratulate all the honorable members who were re-elected and those who are serving for the first time in this august house. I look forward.
You know, one of the things that quite a number of people have been talking about is the debt situation for this country. Now, CS Njuguna Ndungu is proposing to change the mechanism of setting the country's debt ceiling. The CS says that the country's public debt status is sustainable and that the government was up to date in the payment of all its debt commitments and was planning to ensure that does not change. He says the government is planning to change the mechanism from the current system to one that rates it according to the gross domestic product.
When I want to answer your question, sometimes is to educate you. Because, no, forgive me, because we did not change anything, isn't it? We are actually saying, like all other countries internationally, best practice is have a debt anchor. It's just like we have inflation target, isn't it? The role of inflation target is to show you, at any one point you can say, what is the inflation rate today? You know the inflation, I mentioned it, isn't it? It's 8%, isn't it? From the previous month. From the target, it should be 5% within a range of 7.5%, isn't it? So in a sense, what we have is a policy. The inflation should be a target 5%, but you have a policy that it should be in the range of 2.5% to 7.5%, isn't it? It is the same strategy for debt. That we say that we should have a debt anchor at 55%. But then, from a policy perspective and operationalization of that policy, we should have a range. Now, for you, when you look at it, you can tell where is Kenya in relation to the debt anchor. So you can say, oh, it is above 55%, isn't it? So it means its debt carrying capacity needs to reduce. Or suppose it is below 55%, its debt carrying capacity is telling that it can increase the debt, isn't it? So the whole issue, first of all, in terms of law, you cannot default on debt, on public debt in Kenya, isn't it? Do you know that? That's why I said I need to educate you a bit, because that is clear. It has the first charge. But what we want to do is we want to create an information platform that wherever you are, you can see that the National Treasury is moving towards liability management to reduce the debt carrying capacity, because it is already over-indebted. Or it is trying to borrow more because that it is below its debt carrying capacity. If you make an assumption that you are actually provisioning debt to finance public investments, mostly the public goods type of investment.
Well, at least they're planning to also do something about the inflation rate in this country, because inflation has actually gone up. The cost of goods, well, that's one conversation that has been held in so many places. So what is going to happen to the inflation levels in this country, and what are they planning to do? Well, at the same time, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u maintains that the country's inflation rate currently stands at 8%. This, he says, is a significant drop from the 9.6% in October last year, thanks to the measures being put in place by the government. According to the CS, the country's inflation rate has remained above 7.5% since June last year, which is the upper bound target, something he attributed to the high fuel and food prices brought about by the adverse weather conditions and effects of past domestic currency depreciation.
Let me turn to ease of doing business, Mr. Chairman, and consumer protection. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in order to ease the cost of doing business and minimize compliance costs for micro, small, and medium enterprises, the Competition Authority of Kenya will exempt MSE, medium and small enterprise sector from merger notifications, thus enabling startups, digital businesses, among others. Further, the authority will monitor and conduct surveillance audits, specifically in the manufacturing and agro-processing sector, so as to protect MSMEs from incidences and abuse of power, of buyer power. Second, implement codes of practice. The Competition Authority will implement codes of practice to ensure that MSMEs in the retail and insurance sectors are protected from powerful buyers. The Competition Authority will screen and investigate infractions such as suspected cartels or abuse of dominance conduct, such as excessive pricing, price discrimination, predatory pricing, margin squeeze, to ensure a level playing field. And the Competition Authority will actualize and initiate actualize the initiative area started with the National Assembly to address the issue of price fixing by professional services, to make the fees competitive and improve the quality of services. On consumer protection, the authority will monitor and investigate emerging consumer issues on the utility sector, pharmaceuticals, digital financial services, e-commerce, insurance, aviation, and safety of basic commodities. In addition, the authority will seek redress through replacement or refunds to customers affected by dark commercial patterns, scams, fraud under the digital economy.
Well, at least if the inflation rates can be taken care of, we could be in a better place. Now, how much money do you spend in your house per day? Well, at State House, things are absolutely up there, because President William Ruto's State House spending has gone up almost 4 times what former President Uhuru Kenyatta used to spend on a daily basis. Now, the former president used to spend approximately 2.3 million shillings daily, compared to the 8.3 million shillings daily by the Ruto regime. Now, this is according to a report by the Control of Budget, Margaret Nyakango. Roypon Shikuku reports.
Speaking during a meeting on engagement with the media yesterday, Control of Budget Margaret Nyakango said State House has spent more than 1.526 billion Kenyan shillings in 9 months. Comparatively, President Uhuru's government used 626 million Kenyan shillings in the same period last year. This indicates that there has been an increase in the spending by 800 million Kenyan shillings this year. His office has spent 456 million Kenyan shillings on local travel and 88 million Kenyan shillings on foreign trips, which translates to 582 million Kenyan shillings. On the other hand, Uhuru's government spent 294 million Kenyan shillings on local travel and 24.9 million Kenyan shillings on foreign trips in the financial year 2021-2022. The increase in current State House expenditure could be due to increased foreign travel and increased activities at State House and outside State House, whereby the President is usually accompanied by a huge delegation comprising of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Cabinet Secretaries, Principal Secretaries and Members of Parliament. President Ruto has traveled twice to United States, United Kingdom, Ethiopia, Uganda, Burundi, and once to Tanzania, Egypt, DRC, South Korea, Eritrea, France, Senegal, Germany, Belgium, Rwanda, Netherlands, Israel, South Africa, Zambia, and Djibouti. When he assumed office, President Ruto promised to reduce recurrent expenditure by 300 billion Kenyan shillings. Therefore, the question remains, how will he reduce the recurrent expenditure when the State House has doubled its spending? Oifan Shikuku, EBN TV.
Well, it definitely looks that there's a lot of entertaining at State House. 8.33 million shillings per day. Now, to cap this conversation on the budget in a couple of minutes or so, I'll be having a gentleman called Bernard Mulo in the studio with me. Bernard is a former director and of the Kenya Bankers Circle, an associate of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. We'll be looking at some of the things that were said today during the budget and how they are going to affect your pocket. As we do that, I allow you can go get yourself a cup of tea, cup of water, just like I'm doing. Let's take that break.
Hello, praise the Lord. My name is Pastor Joseph Musajawaza of Unfailing Love Ministries. I'm inviting you every Wednesday to join us on our program, Victory Through the Word. In this program, we teach you God's Word. We teach you to find solutions and answers to the struggles of life through the Word of God. Everything you ever go through in life, every pain, every tear, every worry, and every questions that you may ever have in this life. You may not get answers out there, but in God's Word, there are answers and there is a solution. The Bible says that God has exalted His Word above His name. In His Word, there is hope. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but His Word will always remain abide. I encourage you, engage with us as we study together, as you ask your questions, and let your questions be answered as you are built and as you hear God's Word. Our church is located in Umoja, Inako, near Olobon Hotel, just off Sango Stage along Moi Drive, and the court is known as Church Court. Give us a visit and your life will not remain the same. God bless you, and let's meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. only on EBN Television.
Now, welcome back to the EBN Prime edition news. We've been covering the budget. We've been looking at some of the things that were said today by the CS Treasury in Njiri Ndung'u. And just before we went for the break, we looked at the amounts of money that have been spent at State House on a daily basis. As promised, we have in the studio with me Bernard Mulwa, who is the former director of the Kenya Bankers Sacco. Karibu.
Asante.
Now, first and foremost, 8.33 million shillings on a daily basis. That's a lot of shillings. Or are we speaking from layman's perspective? Because the former president used to spend 2.3 million.
Well, it's not easy to say, but of course it looks higher compared to the former president. But when you consider also inflation levels which are gone up, and when you consider that this is a new administration which is doing a lot to establish government, establish international relations, then there's expected to be a little bit more expenditure as they settle.
They're entertaining more people. They're having more people at State House.
Well, foreign missions coming in, going out, that kind of thing. More meetings and all that. As you establish the new government, you expect there's a lot of visitors coming in and all that. But after the government settles, then you expect that will be able to come down and be managed better.
You know, for most people, when the CS Treasury was reading the budget, for majority of your ordinary mwananchi, all he was doing is talking. But now we need you to break it down to how this is going to affect my pocket, because I think that is all that matters. How is this going to affect my pocket? Will I be able to buy unga? Will I be able to do? What are some of the measures that caught your attention and you went, that's a good one?
Yeah, how the mwananchi is going to be affected. One, we have seen duty on imported maize and cereals been removed. That is going to make food imports to be cheaper for us. Then you've seen there's increase in petroleum VAT.
Yes.
This is likely to increase the cost of...
this is what went up from 8 to 16.
To 16%, yeah. This is likely to make the prices in the short term to go up.
In the short term?
Yeah, unless we have the price of petroleum products imported go down, then that VAT increase is likely to increase the prices. But from what the CS was saying is that they expect the oil prices are coming down. So even the increase of VAT will just stabilize, so the prices are not likely to go up. But we are yet to see what the actual prices that will be landed. One of the things which they have done is to remove the imports from foreign to be foreign dominated. You know, the invoice is no longer in dollars. It is in Kenya.
Is this for all imports?
No, for the oil. For the oil imports,
okay,
yeah.
Okay. There was an agreement that was entered into between the government and I think Saudi Arabia.
Exactly, yeah. The only problem with that is this delayed payments. Still in the future, we still have to pay.
But not in dollars.
But not in dollars, yes, for the time being, yeah. So that has reduced pressure on the dollar.
So the reason we were seeing the dollar just blowing the roof was because there was a demand. We are a net importer country, right? Yes. And so almost everything, we import everything, including toothpicks, and we pay for them in dollars.
Precisely. The biggest problem in the import bill, when you look at the total, 40% has been import of petroleum products.
40%?
40% of our imports. So whenever in the former system, whenever the company which had won to import oil for the country was paying the bill, then there was a lot of pressure
on the dollar now, the demand for the dollar.
Demand for dollar, yes. But at least this has reduced the dollar. First, the government is given credit for almost 6 months. So by the time they start paying, then you find either we'll have collected our own dollars and the pressure will not be so much.
This deal was entered into not long ago.
Yes.
Yet we've not seen the value of the Kenya shilling going up, meaning there's still pressure demand on the dollar?
The reason is there are still bills to be paid.
Okay.
So the impact will come over time. The other thing is the restructures like that will not be paying the entire bill at a go. We'll be paying only maybe 500 million at a go. Last time maybe we were paying 3 billion or something like that. So now it will be structured in a way that we pay in installments. So it's going to ease the demand for dollar in the short run.
Yes. Yeah. What other aspects were basically mwananchi based?
The other aspects we've seen duties being introduced to protect mwananchi, especially on import for furniture. So that is going to have an impact such that
it's been reduced.
No, they have introduced taxation for those who are importing furniture.
Or they've introduced.
Yeah, taxation.
So because this basically targets the higher end mwananchi.
Yes. Yeah. But you see, now the local mwananchi is in that industry of furniture production is going to be able to sell because it is going to be more expensive to import. They have actually slapped it with 30% tax. Paints also. We have paints manufacturing companies here. Yeah. Now they are being protected also by introducing excise duty of 15%. So it means now demand locally.
Imported paint is going to become more expensive than the local.
So that protects the local industry. So mwananchi, when there's more demand for the local paint, it means more jobs and more income locally. The other one is sugar. They have also removed slapped duty on imported sugar, which is going to protect the local industry.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is also good for people in Western who are growing sugar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, agriculture is the mainstay of Kenya's, economy.
Yes.
And one of the things I remember when President Ruto took over, he focused so much and talked so much about increasing production when it comes to agriculture so that we can become food secure. From the budget, if you look at the provisions that have been made for the agriculture ministry or anything connected to agriculture, how would you rate the vision of the government? Is it going in line with what they started off by saying?
Yes, I think in the budget they have continued to talk about cheaper inputs to agricultural sector, especially fertilizer.
Yes.
Which they are reducing the taxation on imported fertilizer so that there is cheaper inputs to mind production and serious production. So we can see the theme we started with when he took over the presidency is continuing, and now it's going to be reinforced in this budget because this is the first budget they are reading. So if that cheaper fertilizer can continue being given to the country, then it means production will be cheaper and we'll be able to continue increasing our own production. Number two to that, when we are short of our own production, then they have also removed duty on imported maize to ensure that the common mwananchi is protected, getting cheaper food. Then we have seen also in imported juices to protect our local industries and agriculturists who are able to produce juice, they have slapped duty on imported fodder juices, so that you can use what is local. That's now going to spur market for local juice producers. The people are selling fruits and all that, because when you slap duty on imported powder juice, which makes juice here, then it means you have to look locally.
Yes.
The other aspect is for export processing.
Do we have it?
Yeah, we have fruits. We can encourage people to grow fruits, but to discourage them if you have cheap alternatives imported.
Yes. Now there's something he was talking about, the debt ceiling in the country, because the reason why we are in the mess we are in is because of the debt burden that we have as a country. It's a huge debt burden, and we are constantly almost half of the money raised by KRA is going to service our debts. Now, in one of the stories that we did a few minutes ago, the CS was talking about changing the way we classify our debt ceiling. If you were to speak in a language that my grandmother will understand, what in the world was he talking about?
Okay, simply he was talking about how do you set the debt ceiling. So
it's currently at 10 trillion.
10 trillion, yeah.
Yes, and we are at 9.6.
Yes, which has been like 3 times our GDP.
Yes.
Now, what he's saying, instead of coming with that kind of figure and saying it is 10 trillion, we want to make it a percentage of our GDP. Yeah. Now, if you make it a percentage of GDP, it means as our GDP expands, then the debt ceiling also expands. And we are looking at what is sustainable. What can we be able to repay without
from an economic expert? Does that make sense? Because is it just naming sin and giving it an easier name?
Well, from economic perspective, it is better when you put it as a percentage of the GDP, because when you arrive at that percentage, then you are looking at what can we generate internally to be able to service that debt. So if you lock it at that level, then it means the economy will be able itself to sustain the repayment of that debt. For example, suggesting like if you put it at 55% of the GDP, then it means if you are talking about a budget of 3.6 trillion, then the debt will come down to maybe around 2 billion. And that should be able to be sustained by our income that we are generating, because we are generating more than 2.5 trillion in terms of taxes. So that's what he's looking at. Because if you take it 3 times the GDP, then it is not sustainable to repay.
Yes.
But when you bring it down to a percentage below the total GDP, then it means it is sustainable to service that debt.
And in terms of creating an enabling environment for investors, because one of the things, cost of production is very high in Kenya, and we are seeing quite a number of investors relocating their main business, their manufacturing businesses, to our neighbors, and then retaining their headquarters here, which has around 10 people. So the headquarters are here, but where the rubber meets the road, the manufacturing, the plants, they're taking to our neighboring countries. What in this budget has been provided for to create an enabling environment for investors here?
Okay, I picked 2 things. One, for people at EPZ, if they are buying local raw materials, duty has been exempted. So that encourages them to buy local materials and also make it cheaper for them. In the aviation industry, though people are not getting it very well, is also zero-rated import of any raw material going to be used in that industry. That is likely to spur skills, people who service these aircraft locally, yeah. And we are likely to have industries around that start growing again. The other aspect is on foreign corporate tax for foreign companies. Foreign-owned companies. He has reduced the corporate tax to be equivalent to the local companies. Because
meaning these companies, if it's a foreign company, the corporate tax, there will be no discrimination between. What will be the effect of this?
The effect of that is they were feeling discriminated against because they were paying almost 38%,
while the local pay
30%. So now they are going.
Is that the culture in other countries? What is the culture?
Each country has got its own way of doing things. Because to protect their local industry, they come up with different ways. At least for Kenya, we were charging them more for corporate tax, so that they don't remit more outside. But now he has leveled it so that we all pay the same corporate tax.
Now, what about the situation where we have multinationals that operate within our country have been taking currencies and profits instead of benefiting the country? I don't know how economically how you term that, money's being taken out of the country.
Yeah, that is called repatriation.
Yeah, yes.
Repatriation of profits.
Yes.
And he has also reduced that taxation. I think they have been taxed 15% or something like that. So
he's reduced.
He's reduced it
or increased.
reduce, so that we're encouraging them to invest more because they're able to take out. Because if you discourage them, then they don't come and invest. But if you encourage them to come and invest, so that so long as they are sure they can repatriate their profits, then they'll be able to come and invest more, which is better for us. If you look at regionally, Rwanda and Ethiopia seem to have beaten us in attracting the investors. So we need to look at our taxation regime so that we can attract more investment into our country.
Now, the vulnerable people within our society, we're talking about the elders, the women, people living with disabilities, anything for them? Because as Christians, we have to care about the weak and vulnerable people within our communities.
Yeah, okay. I did not pick that very well, but I've gotten the point where it's looking at giving tax relief for those who are investing in retirement schemes. So there's 15% tax relief which has been promised, which is going to make more available funds for people who are retiring.
So if I'm retiring after this budget has been discussed in Parliament and passed,
yes,
the taxation is going to be reduced by 15%?
Yeah, there will be tax relief of about 15%.
So meaning I will have more money than I would have had before.
Yeah, precisely. More available funds. And then overall for the elderly, you see, if the government system becomes more efficient, collection become more efficient, then you can be sure what they get paid now is not going to be delayed. So an efficient tax collection is also beneficial to them, so that they get their payments on time. Because now they have been complaining they are getting delayed for 3 months, which is not a good thing because the government is cash strapped. But now with efficient collection, if the government kit is well funded, then they will be able to get their funds.
What is the deficit, the budget deficit right now? And because I know one of the policies is they're trying to avoid borrowing, but we have a huge budget deficit. How do they bridge that?
Okay, without debt repayment, the budget is 3.6, and they are projected to collect 2.5. So we have about.
And then there's an amount we are paying for loans, which is almost 1.something trillion.
So the deficit is huge. Actually, the budget which has been made is what we call deficit budget. So we have to look for more money to be able to finance it. But if you add the statement, it put this is a starting point. Now, as we move on, we want to start reducing the deficit so that we'll over time we'll be having what we call balanced budget, where you're able to finance it from your own collections. Rather than having
any new taxes introduced, because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Of course,
apart from what we've been discussing about, the housing bill, the 1.5.
Yes, okay. There is income tax bans which have increased taxation on income tax. Earlier, we had people earning up to 24,000 not paying taxes. And then from 24,000 to 32,333, you are paying 25%. And then above 32,333, you are paying 30%. 30% of your income.
That was then or now?
Then. Now what he has done, the bracket of 32,000 and above has been refined further. And this is how they have been refined. From 32,333 up to 500,000, it will remain at 30%.
Okay.
But now from 500,000 to 800,000, they'll start paying higher tax which is 32.5%. And then those who are earning above 800,000 will start paying at 35%. So that means tax increase for those bands. So he has increased 2 more bands which were not there. And
so that simply means they'll get more money.
The government will get more money, but the mwananchi who are earning more will pay more. Yes. Then other taxes which have been introduced is betting. People are in betting.
Yes.
The taxation has been increased to 12.5% from 7.5%. Those who are doing fish.
12 has been increased from
7.5% to 12.5%, a 5% increase. Then the people are doing fish imports. now they are all going to pay 10% taxation, which was not there.
The people are just importing fish without paying any
tax, yeah. But now they have introduced duty of 10%. Then advertisement on alcohol, betting, and all that, they have also introduced taxation. In that way, there was no taxation, so they have introduced taxation there.
Okay.
Yes.
Right then. Thank you very much. This is a conversation that is definitely going to continue as tomorrow we start analyzing whatever the CS Treasury in Njuguna Ndung'u said. We'll break it down into bits and pieces that people can be able to basically swallow, accommodate, and understand. We're going to go for a short break right now, just a very short break, and when we come back, I'll take you through a couple of stories, including one where one of my friends who's an MP for Embakasi East, Babu Owino, was in court again over the DJ Evolve situation. We'll find out what they told the judges, but right now let's take that break. Asante sana.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
Now, welcome back. I hope you learned a thing or two from the conversation I just had with Bernard Mulwa. I sure did. Now, President William Ruto has challenged the International Labour Organization, ILO, to expand its dialogue to include the unemployed. He said the ILO system has been chiefly worker-oriented, yet labor rights also touch on the unemployed. President Ruto made the remarks during the International Labour Organization World of Work Summit in Geneva, Switzerland. The president said it was concerning that Africa has recorded the highest unemployment rates in the world, with many countries reporting between a quarter and a third of their population as jobless.
The ILO system is worker-oriented in that it primarily represents workers' interests. Yet, labor rights are affected by both employment and unemployment. It should concern us very deeply that unemployment rates in Africa are some of the world's highest, with many countries reporting between a quarter and a third of their populations not engaged in secure, productive employment. As we speak about matters pertaining to work, we must also speak about the millions of jobless people whose voices cannot be heard at a conference like this. The aspirations of the unemployed matter and should be seen to matter, especially for ILO. Social justice for all makes it imperative to expand the social dialogue from the tripartite model, I suggest, to a four-sided forum of workers, the unemployed, employers, and government. Governments, employers, and workers must be equally concerned about the unemployment crisis and committed to finding sustainable solutions to it in order to bring the majority of the world's population into the ILO's traditional constituency. Majority of the world's unemployed people live in the global south, and especially in the continent that I come from. On average, Africa invests 30% of its annual budgets, or $150 billion, on educating and training of its youth and workforce. Only 30% of them join the workforce, and all the way to 70% stay unemployed. What a waste. This perennial waste of human capital and productive opportunity must squarely form part of the most urgent concerns of workers, employers, as well as governments. Traditionally, it has always been a concern of the unemployed and government. I believe we will score serious breakthroughs when we incorporate unemployment and the unemployed.
And finally, Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino has told the court that he has so far spent 58.6 million in medical expenses for DJ Evolve, who he allegedly accidentally shot in a pub. He told the trial magistrate Bernard Ochoi that he had also bought a 17 million shilling apartment for the DJ at Kilimani, where he currently resides. Babu Owino was giving his defense after the court ruled that he had a case to answer for behaving disorderly while carrying a firearm. Led in his testimony by lawyer Duncan Okach, the Embakasi East MP also told the court that he plans to take DJ Evolve to India for further medical treatment and also open a DJ academy for the injured DJ.
Further to that, Your Honor, I'm planning to take him to India for further treatment.
Well, it's now almost 10:15. Yep, it's almost now 10:15. And with that, we got to bring down the curtains on the show, the bulletin. Thank you very much for keeping us company. We'll be doing this all over again tomorrow. Do have yourself a lovely evening. God bless you.